Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you, first of all, for allowing me to speak in this fantastic scenario. I am Juanjo Carmena. I am the application development, marketing and business lead for Microsoft in Western Europe. I'm a bit of an old guy in the company. I was discussing with someone before, and probably I'm raising the average age of the room here. I'm very happy to be in a situation like this. And what I wanted to tell you is about what is the power you have with the things you are doing today. Because what I say is your CEO needs you. I tell this to developers constantly. I posted on LinkedIn last week. It doesn't have to be your CEO. It can be the venture capital you're talking to. It may be the marketing manager or the sales manager or the purchasing manager of the company you are trying to sell your solution to. Or this may be a CEO of a large company, because it's the same. It's like business people, business folks in general. By the way, I'm one of those business guys. I studied business in school. At that time, it was a bit long since I was not hacking my ZX Spectrum. I don't know if anyone knows what that was. But I was a developer before. So I feel represented by this bridge. I feel what the work I do every day, connecting developers to business and business to developers, and the presentation today is very much of a bridge. I was tempted to put a picture of your fantastic bridge in Lisbon, but I thought it was probably too arrogant of my side, so I have a modest and humble one. But I think it's going to go with me during this presentation. The first thing that I wanted to say to you is, in reality, we live in a new world. And it's amazing how new this world is. So you go out there, and you see everyone, and you go to McKinsey, you go to all the big fish in terms of consulting, and everybody's talking about digital transformation. And what is funny is that the CEOs, the business guys, they think they understand transformation, and they ask you what digital means. And they're wrong, because the keyword is not digital. The keyword is transformation. What you do, what you know you have to do, digital, you're still doing. What they have to do, which is their transformation part, is what they're not doing properly, what they don't know how to do. And they need to ask you how to do it, right? And the point is, it's a new world. It changes everything. Everything. They say, it's going to be an opportunity of $100 trillion new dollars of opportunity out there. So they say robots are going to take jobs away. I don't think it's true, but how can you be worried when you see so many things that needs to be built, so many things that need to be put in place, so many things that need to be created, and the opportunity that is behind us? So if you are doing a startup, great. If I was 25 now, I could probably not, 22 today, I would probably not be able to get my degree, because I would probably be there somewhere, probably in Madrid, my home, in a place like this if I can find them. Because it's where the reality is being invented, is created, right? The second part of this, the other side of the coin, they say 52% of the companies in Fortune 500 in the year 2000 no longer exist. And the problem is, in 15 years, probably another 50% it's going to disappear, or 60% will disappear. So the well-known brands that have been with me all my life, they may go away. Many of them will go away. Some of them are in retail and are punished by Amazon. If they're in media, it's a lot of people doing media from digital, from the internet, and they're eating up the market. If whatever you go and think, there is something happening. And what's happening is that the people that is doing digital well, they are thriving. It's going well for them. It's a difference. And this is not like our talk in the freaky room, right? The developer room, where you think, okay, this is going to be big, but we don't know the other side of the room. No, these are the numbers that are getting CEOs awake at night today, because these are numbers from their P&Ls from their profit and losses, and from their balance sheets. If they are not good on digital, they are losing money. And the funny thing is, it's not only being good on digital, which is the up to down kind of axis, is the horizontal axis the one that is important. It's their ability to lead what's happening in their companies. And you know what? It's very difficult for them. So, because it's so many technologies that are new, that are changing everything, that is really, really, really difficult to keep up. Even for you guys that are learners, are trying to learn every day, or are probably they get a lot of time to learn every day, it's really difficult to keep up updated in every field. I was in a class in a marketing master a month ago, and I was showing this slide, and I got them really scared, really, really scared, because they don't know, like people your age in marketing, they didn't know what DNA sequencing was and how it's impacting health. They didn't know how industrial robots are converting into daily robots for all of us. They hear things on the papers, but for them it's like fiction, right? It's something that will probably happen 30 years from now, and it's happening tomorrow probably. They didn't know what quantum computers was. They didn't know what fusion, fusion energy, like nuclear fusion was. So they didn't know about any of these technologies, and when they learned everything that is happening, and it's about to happen at the same time, they were scared, man, scared. And you are the guys that know this. So when you go to the CEO, to the business guy, they feel like this. And I'm happy that the environment for Pixels Cup is like going with my slide, but they feel like the Martian. So it's this guy in a very expensive car, or expensive flying thing, that goes to Mars, they go to your room, and they get confronted with a world that they don't understand at all. They don't get. And they need your help. It's going to be hard because they need to go down to their language in terms of digital. And you need to push them to lead the changes on their side. And the main thing they're looking for is business agility. This is the most important part. The only thing we know, the only thing we can be certain about, is that we don't know a word about how it's going to be 10 years from now. We know probably we want to invent it. We know we want to be part of it. We know we want to really have our hands on the building on that. But we really don't know what is going to be the device that we have on our hand, or what device we're going to be talking to, or any of these things. It's going to be a lot of changes. And you need to be agile to be able to transform your company and to keep up with your technology every day. When you look at the way they think on business, this is a collection of images from different places. This is the Porter value chain. This is the typical organization chart. And when you look at this, it follows the same kind of linear Northern Europe American way of thinking that it's followed in the standard business way, right? So when you go to waterfall development, which is the third graphic, it's kind of the same mindset. It's how they see the life. They see demand, they see raw materials they need to transform, they see a manufacturing plant, they see a sales process, they see some marketing, they see customers. And they see a line that goes like this. And you plan everything at the beginning, you buy the factory, you buy the raw materials, you hire people, they do the magic, you hire managers, so they do the stuff, and at the end, you have sellers, those guys, that go and sell the stuff and get the money back to the company. That's it. It's the waterfall business model. They see the world like this. And you know what's happening with waterfall, right? It's no longer working. And you know who knows how to overcome that? So what they need to do, it's funny, because they need to do, and if you don't know responsive.org, go there and subscribe. It's a fantastic place where they're talking to you in the way to do business in the future, and in a language that we can share. And this is how they need to be. They need to start thinking less on profit and think more on purpose. And you know why? Because in the old times, companies were obscure. You could not see through them. You could never see what's happening through them. Now we know what's happening in most companies because someone is leaking. It's going to the internet. It's going to Twitter. Someone's going to know and tell what's happening inside your company. So the ones that are like not having a purpose, they have a disadvantage regarding the others, right? They need to change hierarchies because hierarchies are built and managed for the army, and they work very well for the progressive model we have. But it doesn't work, doesn't fit the new model of work that I'm going to describe a bit later, that you know very well. They need to go from controlling, like in the manufacturing plant, to empowering. And this is something you know very well. You can empower a developer. You cannot control a developer. If a developer doesn't want to be productive, the developer will not be productive. You need to have him align or her align to the purpose and like the project, to the person to be really efficient and be participating in the project. And you need to change planning. Planning is dead. I'll say that again. Planning is dead. In Microsoft, we know this is not totally true. We still have some planning. But the trend, what you see in most of the companies that are going very well in the market, they're changing planning for experimentation. And this may be familiar to you also, I think. We can discuss about that later. And also privacy for transparency. So what is happening is, you think on the people, right? And the team structure. And you see a waterfall model like this. You have program manager, you have development, you have testing. Or you have purchasing, production, and sales. Whatever you want to do. The thinking is the same. It's the same mental model. What is happening in the development environment is that we are going to this. We are changing, we are blending people, and we are growing to the right and bringing more people and integrating them into our teams and having all of them together, right? Because we are automating, because we are digital, we are creating the automation, we are programming the way the processes work. We no longer have manual processes. You don't end up print a paper and take it to the next office, right? You just do a commit, and then whoever comes later know whatever he has to do or she has to do, right? And the second thing that is happening, and this is even more important in very large organizations, is that with these functional teams, you start building feature teams, meaning smaller teams, very fluid, very flexible, that keep being created and destructed, that are good for adapting to a specific situation. In development, in Microsoft, we say a customer. So you have this market spec or this market environment, and you are creating a solution for this customer type or this customer set, and you have these teams coming from different places of the company that gathers to create something that is iterative and very close to these customers. But when you if you show this to a business guy, and you change feature team for product or for campaign, and you have customers there, and you change the previous names for sales, marketing, these kind of functional teams, they will understand. What you already did is what they need to do. And funny enough, this can be companies, so employees in the same company, but it also can be people coming from different companies that get assembled to do a project very quickly, and then when they finish, they disassemble and go to the next project, different one. The funny thing is, when you go into this iterative project, you go from traditional planning, when you define something, you remember waterfall, right? You know this. And then you change for something that is like this. If you just avoid the technical terms, and you show the slides, and you explain this as business terms, they will understand you. And they will understand what the change is, and they will not be able to know how to do it. They will need to ask you to understand what you did before, to know how to implement this in their own people, in their own company. In Microsoft, this reached to a point where in our engineering teams, we are changing the offices. We are reshaping the whole office environment. We used to have one room per person, engineering, not in sales, but they have in engineering, they had. And now they're changing to rooms that can accommodate 10, 12 people that work together, coming from different teams. So we are breaking up the identification of one person and the team it's working, and in which building is working. That no longer exists. You work with a virtual team of 10, 12 people that is in a specific project in a particular time. And when you finish, you go to other place, meaning no papers, meaning no closet, meaning no physical goods that you need to carry around. You have your computer, your digital environment, and you move from one place to the other. In a sense, you are like a small startup within a very large company. And at some point, it doesn't matter if you are a Microsoft employee. You could be an employee from someone else that is provided with the right level of security and is participating in the processes and in the projects like anyone else that is working. And we see this happening all the time, even in marketing and sales today. The other thing that is relevant is how this impacts the people. And this is a book that I would recommend. It's from Daniel Pink. And this is how, this type of work changes. So the idea is that you need to bring three things from people. Autonomy. You need to give them autonomy so they can really create. They can really put their brains at the maximum speed to be in the maximum efficiency and work in the best way. And this is what you need to do when you have developers. You cannot be with the developers, do this, do this, do this. It wouldn't be efficient at all. It wouldn't work. You need to have developers and her or his brains just working with the computer, making sure that everything is happening properly and that this level of creativity is brought into the process. You need to give them mastery, so you need to help them people to learn more and to keep on growing on the work they're doing, and you need to give them a purpose. So they feel they are part of a team, they are growing in that direction, and that they share the values of the direction we're going. They talk about Generation X, Generation Z, Generation whatever. What is happening is, I guess, more profound than just the thinking of a group of people that just happen to be born in the same year. What I think is happening is that these kind of ideas are clearly affecting the way younger people is working today. And they feel like that very often. When you think about the way you work, you need to be clear on the autonomy when you are, and give autonomy to the team for the plan and for the practices. You align with them on what they need to do. You align with them and make sure there is a plan that is followed by everyone in terms of the roles, the teams, the cadence, the taxonomy, so you are working on similar things. But this is the alignment. When you go down to the plan, to the specific items in the plan, and the practices, the way you do things, you need to rely on the way people think and follow them and let them alone. Make sure they do the best work, the best work they can, because you are not looking at them all the time. This is very different from the old times, right? Where you had these teams that were very much designed. And I remember when I joined Microsoft, someone just came to me and sold me it was a book like this big, where they had all the different job descriptions in the company. So the job of every person was very carefully coded and written down. So the person, when joining the job, had to read through the job description and do exactly what was there, right? Can you imagine that? This happened. And this happened to someone, well, I'm old, but not that older, right? So like someone 50 years old like me. The fourth thing that is relevant is the data culture. And I think this is to be open to innovate. To be open to innovate, and this is really, really related to open source, and it's related to a couple of other things. And I think the open source environment, and I'm bringing a slide from GitHub because it's the best one that I've seen about this. The idea is that these open source workflows, having your purpose communicated to the community, having the intent published to the people that may share it, and allowing third parties to come and share their intelligence and their work with you, and being exposed to others and allowing others to collaborate with you is something that is changing a number of things. I'm still from Microsoft. Someone may not know, we love open source now. And this is something that changed since Satya came, right? Not all the time has been like that. You're very young, you don't remember. This was kind of a war. But we adopted this, and we recognize how this changed in the market, how the market changed in a good way because open source has had an impact in many different environments. Still, we don't think it has to be mandatory. We do open source for many projects. We don't do open source for all of the projects. But we have to recognize that this is very valuable to the industry and to everyone that is participating. So it's creating a lot of value. When you bring this to other environments, you can see that other companies, not IT companies, not digital companies, are starting to do this and are doing very, very well with it. So you have people that are publishing part of their development, particularly when it relates to either parts of their business that require a lot of trust or end users. So the end users can review the code and understand what is happening really. Or when they need to have a close collaboration with other companies that are also able to code. So they share their repositories and they see what others are doing and they can affect what others are doing. And you see the way this creates business value, and it's amazing. And in many senses, when you go to the CEO, this is hard to explain. This is very hard to explain. Because 25 years ago, when I was like you are today, 25 years, and I was visiting places that I would like at that time that were like this, like Pixels Camp, at that moment, keeping everything secret was absolutely mandatory because it was the result of your brain and you had to live on that. So you could not ever share this with others, right? So the change in my lifetime has been amazing in this regard. For business guys, for the CEO of your company, of your partner, whatever, this is still not clear, probably. This is a mental barrier they need to cross. When they hear open source, they know it's something related to IT. One of the things they think is IT. But in fact, you see, it's something that is changing many industries. There is one example that I like a lot. There is one company that is leading, it's been the first, and maybe it's not leading any longer, I'm not qualified to say that, but it's been leading the car industry what relates to electric cars, which is Tesla. Tesla, 3 or 4 years ago, got all the patents for batteries, everything, and published everything as open source, everything. What's the idea? The idea is we can go fast if we go alone, but we cannot wait for the whole industry to be completely unknown of this. We need the whole industry to progress together on batteries, or diesel cars are going to be in the street forever. We will never make sure that electric cars have the leading spot in the industry. So they needed collaboration with others, and they published everything. Now go tell your CIO or your CEO. It's going to be a lot of fun. When you tell them that they could probably publish all their trade secrets in order for the industry to go faster. I don't think they're going to be aligned with you immediately. They may, if you are very convincing, but it's going to take them some time. And in fact, if I can talk to them, I will tell them they need to hear you because you know how it works. You already know how this open innovation works, and they don't. And this is going to be key for them over the long run. This is going to be one of these key things that open innovation is one of these things that will differentiate leading companies from others. In a more IT world, you know Kubernetes was created at Google first. You know .NET, you probably don't know, but .NET is now an open source environment. We published everything. We have more and more things that are open source, and we see the benefits of a whole community that is working together on that. The second thing that is important here is winning the war for talent. You know, hiring, probably if you are doing startups and you are in a technical business environment, you are trying to hire. And hire good people is really difficult in every place, Having an open environment, having a sense of purpose, having a transparency, being able to communicate what you are doing really makes a difference in hiring the right people. Because they can see that you are doing a good job or not, they can do what is your intent, and they can feel kind of committed. And I, again, recommend you to read that book to understand how the work of the future is going to be. They can feel committed voluntarily to participate in your project and work with you. This is going to be a lot of changes. And it's going to be harder and harder. I think Europe has a problem in general in the amount of technical people that is coming out of technical school, even if not everyone in the political environment may notice, right? It's really there. This allows this global community and diverse community of contributors. This diversity is also something very, very important for Microsoft. We've started to try, and we see every day that those teams that have no diversity go slower. So it's not like, I'm going to hire this kind of woman or different race because, I am responsible. It's bad for me, it makes me slow, but it's good for society. That is wrong. Having diverse talent makes you more efficient, more creative, and makes you go faster. It makes take you some work, right? It will be difficult because you need to adapt. It's easier to start some company with your 2 colleagues from school, right? From college. The 2 guys that you were studying engineering with that have been sharing the same jokes for like 4 years. It's easier to start with them. But in fact, this is a problem you have. It makes you slower, makes you biased, makes you create a lot of blind spots on you. You need to open up. And I know I'm talking about this, and here I'm not talking about the CEOs. I'm talking about you guys, because I know the environment. And I know many, many of my colleagues need to still step up, and still myself, I'm totally open, I'm totally committed, and still my colleagues at the office who are diverse are telling me every day, you have this blind spot, you made this sentence wrong, you made this in the wrong way, you are not giving us the word, you are not giving the word to the person that has the most interesting opinion in this particular topic. So if you want to go fast and you want to go far, make sure you have people that is different from you and from your partner team or from your normal team to make sure you have a complete view of the world. The other topic that is more and more important is about APIs. And APIs are kind of controversial. Here I'm not talking about this API you wrote that is connecting your backend to your frontend. That is best practice. Keep on doing that. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these APIs that enable companies to grow and innovate working with third parties. So we have banks, for example, that are opening up the ability to allow the end users to give part of their info, not the most detailed info, right? But for example, one particular metadata, the metadata for one particular info, or some like collection of items, like the summary of some transactions, to a third party that is able to look at that and to understand and add some value from additional knowledge that third party may have from some other places. So I don't know, frankly, how it is in Lisbon, in Madrid, in many other cities. You see that the city published this application, right? And you have the city applications. In some cases, they're lucky, and the application is good. It's not happening everywhere. I could probably find some that are not very good, right? Even when you see that the marketplace, the application, the mobile application, has very, very lousy marks from the end users, the politician keeps talking how wonderful the application is, right? I like to talk about how they're doing in the city of London, not the city, it's the bigger environment of London. They have their application, nobody's using it. They just publish everything as APIs. Meaning, you have hundreds of different applications that are using the data. Most of them are for allowing people and helping people to move around. But you see people that is starting to use statistics to help you drive better. Or there are third parties that are using this to add like commercial intelligence. So the shops know that a particular place is better than another place. So this publishing of information is amazing in the sense of the value it allows to create to everyone that is around. API is, at some point Microsoft was talking about the API economy. For some reason that term is no longer used a lot. We can still talk about that. But this is something that really, really, really has the ability to combine with open source, create an environment that you can open up what you need to open up to be really able to collaborate with others. Again, like in any other of the previous ones, go talk to your CEO and let me know later how it goes. Because it's hard for them to understand. They don't have the education, most of them. I'm not talking CEOs, I'm talking business guys. They don't have the business education, the technical education, to understand how others can use the data without even talking to them. They don't need to tell others what to do. Others can do whatever. Others will find and bring ideas and mental models and systems that are much better than the ones that we're using internally. And it's very difficult to understand how this collaboration, this microservices kind of world, can work also in the business environment. And finally, let me talk about the data culture. And this is difficult because you know data, right? Many of you may be doing Mongo and non-relational and relational, and some of you may be writing SQL queries like this long and whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about how data is an asset. I don't know how many of you know accounting and how many of you know that an asset is what makes a company rich. A company that is rich has a lot of assets, right? Data is an asset. It's not an asset that would probably go into the company P&L balance sheet. It's very difficult to put it there. In terms of accounting, I wouldn't recommend to do it easily. But it's one of those assets that any company has. The way we see this, we see four ways or four environments where digital transformation has to happen. You need to change the way you interact with your customers, and this is how it normally starts, because you're a taxi driver, you're a taxi company, and you see Uber, and you see they allow users to reserve the car, and you cannot do it, so you start by trying to do it, right? And you copy what you see. And this is one. But there are a couple of other topics that are very important. Very often, it's the product itself. It's like, what is the product of Airbnb? They have no hotel room. Their product is an app. And the digitalization that the app is imposing of some third-party homes. When you are a hotel room, when you're a hotel owner, you think that your hotel rooms are your product. But in fact, for the customers that are out there, it may not be the case. They may prefer to have something that is completely digital and a bit smaller, and easy to use, and with a good UX, and convenient in the check-in and check-out, and able to ask and request things from the application so that you don't have to call someone on the phone to bring some champagne to your room, some water to your room, whatever, right? This is the digital part of the product. One thing that is very important related to this is IoT, which is another kind of hype technology that is out there. IoT means that in 2, 3, 10, 5, you set the number, years, everything will have a sensor. And everything will have what we call a digital copy or a digital twin. We will have a digital twin for everything that is useful and we use a lot in our life. Meaning, suddenly, you will start changing the product into a service. You will be able to change the product into services. The easier way to see this is how Uber is thinking on renting cars or selling you cars that are in fact a service. So you don't buy a car, but you buy them a number of hours of riding a car over the year for 3 years. And you have the same service. You may even end up in a situation that you have a car in your garage in the morning every day when you wake up, but the car is not yours, and in fact, you don't know where the car is 60% of the time, right? This is how products are converted into digital. And this gets to impact a lot two other, the true traditional kind of things you had to manage as a CEO. Operations, how you make sure that the company delivers every day on the promise that it brings. So you say, you're a hotel chain, I need to go there, reserve a room, and sleep. And the bed has to be clean, and it has to be well done, it has to be prepared, and everything has to be on time, and I need a good breakfast, and it has to be there, right? And I want a croissant, it has to be in the morning in the table. So as an entrepreneur, you need to make sure that, as a manager, you need to make sure that you buy them, that you have people preparing them, the people has to be well educated and know what to do. When you go into a digital world, it's the same, but it's different. Because you need to understand, on this process of the croissant going from the manufacturing plant to the van to the truck, and to the truck to the shop, and to the shop to the truck, and the truck to your hotel, how digital is going to impact you, and how the digital technologies are useful for them to the most important word on digital transformation, which is transformation. How they transform their chain of things that happen using the digital technology. And you sit down with them, and you tell them, it happened to me a couple of times, and they get lost immediately. They don't understand. They get back to their inertia of the way, and they need to see the physical stuff, things they can touch, or it's very difficult for them to imagine what to do with it, right? And the fourth one, and it's not the less important at all, it's employees. So what is the role of the employees on this new change you're inventing? And it's very easy to say, a robot is going to take your job, but I want to see it. I want to see it. Because employees, people, is the one that creates the soul of a company externally and internally. Is the one that can improvise. Is the one that can understand patterns that are in front of them. Is the one that can write down an email with, hey, I think we have a problem here. Robots cannot do it. So at some point, maybe in 50 years, we will have robots with enough artificial intelligence that they will be able to say, we have a problem and I think we should change this process. But it's going to take a lot of time. I don't think you're going to see that. Crossing my fingers, I don't know. But it doesn't look like that. So employees, and the way employees are treated, and the way employees are working, remember the Daniel Pink book, right? The way they are properly motivated and sharing your vision and sharing your intent when you are doing business every day is really, really important in the way you are treating them and changing them. Funny thing is, when you go digital, first of all, you need to capture the data. This is what I mean by data-driven or data-based or data whatever, right? You really need to start taking all the data that is lost somewhere. Things we know it's happening. So I do this question all the time. How many of you are keeping the logs of the website? How many companies are storing the logs of the website? The logs of the website is nothing more than the register, the track of everything your customers are doing with your public face. Nothing else. I don't know if that's important. I think it may be, right? Every company out there is just deleting after 2 months or after 30 days or something like that. You know why? Because storage is expensive. It's not so expensive on one side. You go to the cloud and it's not expensive at all. But still, is your asset, is the knowledge of what the external people that is interacting with you is doing. And then you delete. You create a script that is deleting this every 30 days from the database. I don't think that's very smart. And this goes to the way employees interact with each other, keeping privacy okay, right? And this is the way the products are interacting with users. So, it's many, many examples. So, is the bus company in any city in Europe able to understand where the buses go empty? I think they may have some systems. I don't think those systems are perfect today. I saw people that is investing in creating those systems that allow the shop owner to understand what's happening with the people inside the store. So they know if someone is entering and going out immediately, and what is the socio-demographics of these people. Is these people older and younger? You can do this with artificial intelligence today. You can capture it all. But it takes like a mindset to understand that you don't have to rely on the shop manager. You need to rely on a system. And you need to ask the shop manager what happened and why the system is saying something. And then you get the insights of the data that you're getting. Right? And then you can use this data to improve the business outcomes, to change things. One thing that is important is that this is the place where you start really getting the reason why, breaking the process. You remember I was saying you had this waterfall process, this Porter-style kind of linear process, and we need to go to something else. Why? Where do you start? You cannot do anything without the data. You need the data to understand where you have a problem. And you need the data to something that is even more important. You need the data to do lean startup process, to understand the minimum viable product of a solution for the problem you perceived, to put it in place the quicker you can, and to test, and to compare, to really see what is the data that is coming out of the tests you are doing. If you are not doing testing, you are not digitally transformed. I don't know if you know, but all this time, people were kind of saying that Windows is sending data back to Microsoft. The data is nothing else than our information to understand if we place an icon in the bar and nobody is using it. Because we want to know that, just to change the icon or to take this somewhere else where people can find it, right? This is testing. When you look at any large service from a web page, every single color, every single item in the CSS, every single field they put in front of you, in the very well-transformed companies, everything goes through testing every single day. And we know people that is running 20, 40, 60 tests every day, right? Now, this is the digital world. How do you explain this to the business guys? You know who's your enemy here? The middle managers. Because the middle managers have a career, and they want to show off how smart they are. Because they had this idea, and they are fighting for resources to implement it finally, and then they put lipstick on whatever ugly pig they find, so they can show off how good their idea was. So, like this concept that they're going to be testing all the time, and that the result of the testing is going to be on the data, not on their narrative, is painful for them. Painful. But you know what? They need to learn from you. Because probably many of you are already doing testing every day, and they need to learn that this is good for them personally because it's good for their business. And this is one of the main topics that are normally neglected when people talk about data-driven whatever. It's not about doing a report or looking at BI. It's about being intentional in the way you define the tests to make sure that the business outcome is related to what we were looking for in terms of the perceived problems before. And this, includes the area of these four topics. This is very important in particular when you, and this is a very interesting conversation I had in Portugal with the CTO of a company you all know, and of course I cannot say the name. And I started the presentation by saying the guy was kind of conservative, very expensive tie, very, very large room with very amazing place. But the guy was a bit conservative, and I started saying, your business is an app. Your business is nothing else than an app. The guy was not happy. He was pushing back a bit. He's a very senior guy. And he was like, you cannot say that. Why I cannot say that? Everything you're doing is an app. Say, no, it's not an app. I say, okay, let me know one of the parts of your company, the bigger part of your company that you think is not an app. And the guy said, my sales office in the street, that is not an app. And I asked him, what is the empowerment that the people, the sellers in the sales office, have for anything? For defining the product, for providing service, for changing the price? He said, 0. Okay, so the employee in the office that is not an app is just a human interface between the user and an app, right? Because everything happens in your app. He said, well, yeah, maybe you're right. Okay, let me know another one. He said, the contact center. Speaks by itself. It's even more than the previous one. Next. He had no more ideas. Everything else was managed by a system, by an IT system. The problem is, when you look at your systems, and those are like niches, so this is the vertical application for accounting. This is a vertical application for the distribution network. This is for the shops. This is for taxes. Obviously, for you, so much work happening from one place to the other that you don't see the company as a single app. But when you go to a digital company, to a really digital company, and I'm not inventing here, guys. It's Airbnb, Uber, Tesla, Google, mostly Microsoft, many of them, what you see is that all the systems are properly connected. So by changing the different environments there, by connecting the data, by collecting the data and putting it together in a place, data lake at the end, it makes sense to find the application. The whole company is like an app. All the business functionality, everything is defined in software. Someone is coding that business functionality. And you know why? You know what? They don't notice. They don't understand this. This is something that is true, and they need to ask and learn from you. Guess many of you are starting a small company. I guess this is the way you are trying to do things, right? And this is the way that probably makes more sense for you because you are starting from scratch. The guys that are in big fish, big companies, it's much more difficult for them to understand it. And they would probably need your help. This is the engineering team in Microsoft definition of done. The definition of done is in production, collecting telemetry, and examining the hypothesis that motivated the deployment. So it's intentional. If it's not intentional, it doesn't make sense. So this was all the 4 topics, right? And I said, your CEO, the business guys, need you. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single sprint or a single step. They don't understand sprint, so tell them step, right? I kind of started this presentation last week when I I posted this on LinkedIn, right? And many people were like liking or not liking or whatever. I think it's very important, and I was asking everyone to go ask you, right? Ask the young developers in your organization because they're going to tell you what digital world is and what you need to do for digital transformation. Now I told you what you need to tell them, right? I will share the slides so you know what. So I connected the dots in both sides. We think that developers are at the heart of any company's innovation. This is the key part of it. And we see some cases where some big fish are starting to recognize that, right? This is particular Société Générale. And they think that they need to be like a software company to really succeed in banking going forward. And I'm sure there is one elephant in this room. There is one word that you all thought that I have not said, right? And this word is exactly DevOps. DevOps is a technical thing. You cannot go out there to a CEO and tell them DevOps. They don't know what it is. And you know what? You don't need them to know what it is. They need to understand what you're doing, not the concept. Don't get on the plane of the DevOps concept because it doesn't mean anything for them. And it will not mean anything for them. DevOps is digitally transformed groups of developers. This is DevOps. When you go to business, what you think on what DevOps did to development, this is what you need the CEO of your company to implement in the way of working to make the change they need to thrive in the digital world. And the funny thing is, in one side, when you go to the market, this is small, but you go to Dora. Dora, I think, was bought by Google lately. It's a company that does a very, very good survey on the status of DevOps. The results of the companies are extremely good. The companies that are really doing DevOps at the core of their innovation. So this is something you can show, and it's going to be hard for them to believe, but it's the proof that this is happening. At the same time, DevOps is not magic. So avoid the hype. Focus on the small things, right? Focus on the real changes that need to happen on the other side. Don't oversell DevOps. And that was it. This is I like this, the Microsoft mission. And I just wanted to say obrigado. Here are my data, so if anyone wants to contact me for any reason, this is my email and my Twitter handle. And to finish, and we have some time for some questions, I want to make you know that we have 40 IoT kits that are in the booth, are things like this, right? And are very, very nice. You need to do, and you can see that way where the arrow is pointing, this is the Microsoft booth, and you need to do 3 things. You need to find the URL where this is published, you need to register your project, and then with the project is already registered, you need to go to the Microsoft booth where the red arrow is pointing, and you need to talk to them to get one of your IoT kits. Okay? Thank you, everybody. Obrigado. And thank you. I don't know if there is any question or any complaint or comment or whatever. I don't know if the topic was interesting. I tried. Question? No. Question? No. It was okay, thank you. It was this. I didn't know it was a question. Okay, so go register your URL and get the IO kit. Thank you very much, guys.